What's better than lifting weights?
Lifting weights and walking. That's right, we'll talk today about where walking and pain intersect. It's the farmer's carry.
The farmer's walk, also known as the farmer's carry, has been a staple in strongman for decades. It is one of my favorite events. It involves grip, overall strength, and a whole lot of grit. So first, you want to be mindful of where your feet are in relation to the handles. You don't want to be too far behind the handles, because that is an inefficient way to lift this up. This is like all back. You don't want that. You want to be able to use your quads. Bring your feet up to where roughly they're center. Your shins pretty much center. For hand placement, I would suggest dead center. Some people prefer slightly back or slightly forward. For training purposes and just overall strength training, I would highly suggest dead center. Next, we'll concentrate on your grip. You don't want to go straight in and grab the handles like this. That puts a lot of pressure on your four fingers. A trick that I learned years ago is to come in, cup it. You're kind of like scooping the handle. Cup it, wrap your fingers around it, take your thumb and put it over your index finger. It'll be somewhat of an awkward lift at first, but it makes sense as you go. You put your thumb over your index finger, you squeeze, and when you stand up, you'll see that the handles doesn't move, but your palm will rotate around the handle. So what's happening is the skin is somewhat wrapping around this handle. It's redistributing all that weight throughout the entire palm versus your fingers. You do have to have a somewhat high pain tolerance though, because it can be painful. Be mindful of tearing your calluses. For your grip, chalk is your friend. Usually on these events, they do not allow lifting straps, especially tacky, no tacky. But chalk, that's the way to go. Now, some people, what they'll do is they'll just chalk their fingers. Well, if you do the technique that we showed you earlier in the video, what you want to do is you want to use your whole palm and fingers. So you want to be very liberal with the chalk. Get in the whole palm. Not just there though. Go ahead and put it on your index finger, in between your thumb, and on your thumb as well. It's going to be touching the bar as well, or the handle I mean, and you're going to have like what's called an outside hook grip, where basically your thumb is on the outside of your index finger. Some people, if they have large enough hands, they can do it like a hook grip where your thumb is on the inside. Dear Lord, that hurts. That's really painful. Next, we'll talk about your hip placement and leg drive. If you lift like this, that puts an awful lot of strain in your low back. My suggestion is to treat this almost like a leg press. You want to push the feet into the ground. Don't even think about lifting up. You're pushing it into the ground. You're pushing it into the ground. You get centered, you grip it. Instead of starting with your hips high like this, you get a lot of air intake. Dip your hips to about here. From this position, you want to think push into the ground. You don't want to use just low back. Use as much musculature as you possibly can. Some people prefer like a staggered stance, so when they go, they can go right off the bat. I'm not a fan of that. I've seen it too many times. I've judged meets since 1996 or so. A lot of people dump the implement. Instead of doing a staggered stance, my suggestion is to have your feet in line, lift it up, think like you're shifting gears, first, second, and third. So your first step would be kind of like a half a step. Your second step, it's like a 3/4, and then you have a full step. You do not ever want to make too huge of a step. That puts way too much stress on the knees, and you'll have a higher probability of dumping the weight. Breathing and bracing for the farmers is vitally important. When you get into a position to lift it up, you want to take in a big breath, fill up your lungs, get braced. You may be using a belt. You can push your abdomen against the belt, push into the floor or the ground, lock it out, right? And as you're walking, remember, you want short, fast strides. You do not want long strides. And your breathing is not so much as you're exhaling everything like that. No. You don't want to lose any of that structural integrity. You want to almost be like a choo-choo. You want to, like Lamaze class, you want to big air, and then short breaths. I usually try to time them with my feet. So like every left foot, I breathe in and out, breathe in and out. In most contests, the farmer's implements will start with the front plate where the cone is, if they have cones. Most times, the back plate, not the front plate, but the back plate has to cross the finish. Go all the way across with the full implement. Usually, sliding is not allowed. Sometimes they will give you a time penalty. Try not to, like say, come up on the line like 4 feet before the line, so I'm just going to slide this across the line like an... No, they're going to give you like a timed penalty, right? That's it for today. Next week, we're going to follow up with some accessories and more in-depth on turns. Be sure to check us out on our onewaystrength.com, our Instagram and Facebook pages as well.
Can I be done?
Yeah, you can let that down.
Bye.
Hey. I totally f***ed it up, didn't I?
You're fine.
Front plates. Ah, that'd be a good blooper.
No tacky ever.
No tacky ever. You don't do that. You know, you want to be polite. Well, I'm going to have you hold this all the time.
Oh, God.
Right. Whoops. Ah. We're going to have to breathe through this. We'll see how that is.
Oh, that almost killed me.